There's a different kind of tension building around the New York Yankees right now, and you can feel it getting stronger as opening day creeps closer and closer. This is not just the usual preseason excitement. It is something a little more complicated, a mix of anticipation and concern that comes from a team trying to balance immediate expectations with long-term stability. With just about a week to go before games start counting for real, the Yankees are staring at a handful of decisions that could shape how this season begins and possibly how it unfolds over the first crucial stretch. The spotlight is already turning towards San Francisco, where the journey officially kicks off, and while there's plenty to be excited about, there are also some very real questions that have yet to be answered. One of the biggest talking points right now revolve around a key arm in the rotation, a player who quickly became one of the most intriguing pieces of this pitching staff. After dealing with a minor setback not too long ago, his preparation has been slightly delayed, and that changes the way the Yankees have to approach the early part of the season. The expectation is not that he will be unavailable, but rather that he may not be fully stretched out, which forces the team to think creatively. Instead of pushing him too hard too soon, there is a strong possibility that the Yankees will ease him into action, possibly limiting his pitch count and relying more heavily on the bullpen to bridge the gap in those first appearances. That kind of approach might not sound dramatic at first, but it has ripple effects across the entire pitching staff. When a starter is not going deep into games, every inning that follows becomes more important, and suddenly the bullpen is under more pressure to deliver consistent performances right out of the gate. This is where roster depth and flexibility start to matter a lot more than people might expect. The Yankees have options, and there are names waiting for opportunities, but the question is whether those options will be ready to step up immediately if needed. Early in the season, when the schedule includes some built-in rest days, there is room to maneuver, but that window does not stay open forever. At the same time, there's also a scenario where the Yankees decide to stick with their original plan and give their young starter the ball early, even if he's not fully built up. In that case, it becomes a calculated risk, one where the team accepts a shorter outing in exchange for maintaining the structure of the rotation. If he can give them 4 or 5 solid innings, that could still be considered a win, especially if the bullpen can take over and lock things down. It is not a perfect solution, but it might be the most practical one given the circumstances. And considering how effective he was in his previous appearances, there's a level of confidence that he can still make an impact even without being at full capacity. Looking back at what he showed before, it is easy to understand why the Yankees are being cautious. In a relatively small sample of games, he delivered performances that immediately turned heads, combining strikeout ability with composure that you do not always see from younger pitchers. His fastball has already proven to be a major weapon, and there is a belief within the organization that his overall arsenal can continue to grow. That development, however, depends on keeping him healthy and allowing him to progress at the right pace, which is exactly why the team is resisting the urge to rush things, even with the season about to begin. While the pitching situation is drawing a lot of attention, it is not the only storyline developing as the Yankees prepare for opening day. There is also a growing focus on one of the most promising young bats in the lineup, a player who has already shown flashes of becoming a central piece of the team's offensive identity. His numbers from last season suggest that there is something special there, even if everything has not fully clicked into place yet. In many ways, he represents the kind of upside that can elevate an entire lineup, especially if he takes that next step and turns strong underlying metrics into consistent production on the field. What makes the situation particularly interesting is how the Yankees are planning to use him defensively. There's a clear intention to keep him primarily at first base, which reflects how much they value his presence in the lineup on a daily basis. At the same time, there is flexibility built into his role, with a possibility of him stepping in behind the plate when needed. It is not about turning him into a full-time catcher, but rather having that option available in specific situations. That kind of versatility can be extremely valuable, especially early in the season when roster decisions are still being fine-tuned and the team is trying to maximize every available spot. Offensively, the potential is undeniable. The combination of power and contact ability makes him a difficult matchup, and when you look deeper into the numbers, it becomes even more impressive. There are indicators that suggest he has been somewhat unlucky, which means there could be another level waiting to be unlocked. If that happens, the Yankees could suddenly find themselves with one of the more dangerous hitters in the league emerging right in the middle of their lineup. And considering the names already surrounding him, that would add another layer of complexity for opposing pitchers trying to navigate through the order. As the countdown to opening day continues, all of these elements start to come together into a bigger picture. The Yankees are not just preparing for a single game. They're setting the tone for an entire season, one that carries high expectations and very little margin for error. Every decision, whether it involves managing a pitcher's workload or defining a player's role, is part of a larger strategy aimed at putting the team in the best possible position to succeed. And with so many moving parts still being sorted out, the next few days are going to be absolutely critical in determining how this team takes the field when it finally matters. As all of this continues to unfold, the deeper you look into this Yankees roster, the more it becomes clear that the early part of the season is going to be defined by adaptability. This is not a team that can simply rely on everything going according to plan, especially with key pieces still working their way in a full rhythm. The coaching staff is going to have to stay one step ahead, constantly adjusting based on performance, health, and game situations. That is where the real challenge lies, because managing talent is one thing, but managing uncertainty is something entirely different. And right now, there's just enough unpredictability surrounding this roster to make things very interesting. When you shift the focus back to the pitching situation, the importance of depth becomes impossible to ignore. There are names in the system who could be called upon earlier than expected, and while that might seem like a risky move, it also presents an opportunity. Sometimes, those early season call-ups end up becoming unexpected contributors, players who step into the spotlight and refuse to give it back. The Yankees have seen that happen before, and it would not be surprising if history repeated itself in some way. Still, relying on that kind of outcome is never the ideal strategy, which is why the team is trying to carefully balance patience with urgency. At the same time, the bullpen is quietly becoming one of the most important units on this team, especially under these current circumstances. If the starting rotation cannot consistently go deep into games right away, then the bullpen has to be ready to absorb a heavier workload. That means multiple innings from certain arms, smart matchup decisions, and a level of consistency that can stabilize the game when things start to shift. This is where roles start to matter a lot more, because having a reliable bridge between the starter and the late innings can completely change how competitive the team remains on a nightly basis. There's also a psychological aspect to all of this that cannot be overlooked. When players know that roles are flexible and that adjustments are being made in real time, it creates a different kind of environment inside the clubhouse. For some, it becomes a motivating factor, an opportunity to prove their value in different situations. For others, it can be a challenge, especially when routines are disrupted and expectations are constantly evolving. The Yankees are going to need strong leadership, both from the coaching staff and from veteran players, to keep everything aligned as these changes take place. Meanwhile, the offensive side of things continues to generate a lot of intrigue, particularly when it comes to how certain players might break out this season. There's a sense that the lineup has more potential than what was fully realized before, and that is largely tied to players who are still on the rise. When you look at the underlying performance metrics, you start to see signs of a player who could take a major leap forward, someone who already has the tools but just needs the results to fully catch up. If that happens early in the season, it could completely change the way opposing teams approach this lineup. What stands out the most is the way his offensive profile is built. There is power, but it is not just raw power without discipline. There is contact ability, but it is not empty contact. It is a combination that suggests sustainability, and that is exactly what the Yankees need. They are not just looking for flashes, they are looking for consistency over the long haul. And if this player can start to convert those strong underlying numbers into actual production, then suddenly the lineup gains a level of depth that can be very difficult to contain. Defensively, the situation remains a work in progress. but it is one that the Yankees seem comfortable with. The priority is clearly centered around keeping his bat in the lineup as often as possible, even if that means accepting some limitations in the field. At first base, there is still development taking place, but there have already been signs of improvement. Behind the plate, the expectations are more situational, and that flexibility could end up being a key factor in how the roster is structured, especially during the early stretch of the season when every roster spot carries extra weight. Another element that adds to this entire equation is the schedule itself. With built-in off days early on, the Yankees have a unique opportunity to manage workloads in a way that might not be possible later in the year. This allows them to be more strategic with their pitching decisions, giving certain players extra time to recover while also limiting the overall strain on the staff. It is a subtle advantage, but one that could make a meaningful difference if used correctly. The challenge, of course, is making sure that the team does not lose momentum while navigating those gaps between games. All of these moving pieces point to one central theme, which is that the Yankees are entering this season with both promise and pressure. There is no shortage of talent, and there are clear reasons to believe that this team can be very competitive. At the same time, there are questions that need to be answered, and those answers are not going to come all at once. They will develop over time, shaped by performance, adjustments, and the ability to respond when things do not go as expected. And as the first pitch of the season gets closer, the sense of anticipation continues to build, not just because baseball is back, but because of everything that is still waiting to be revealed once the games finally begin. And as the Yankees get closer to finally stepping onto the field for games that truly matter, there is also a growing sense that these early decisions could have a lasting impact far beyond just the first couple of weeks. The way they handle their pitching, the trust they place in younger players, and the balance they strike between caution and aggression will all play a role in shaping the identity of this team. It is not just about surviving the opening stretch. It is about setting a standard and building momentum that can carry forward. If they manage to navigate these early challenges successfully, it could create a foundation of confidence that becomes incredibly valuable as the season progresses and the competition intensifies. At the same time, there is no denying that expectations remain extremely high, and that comes with its own level of pressure. Every performance will be analyzed, every decision will be questioned, and every adjustment will be closely watched. That is part of what comes with wearing that uniform and being part of the team with this kind of history and ambition. But within that pressure, there's also opportunity, especially for players who are ready to step up and define their role. The spotlight is there, the stage is set, and now it becomes about execution, about turning potential into production and making sure that when the season officially gets underway, this team is ready to respond to whatever comes its way from the very first inning. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. The buzz around the Bronx has reached a fever pitch as whispers grow louder about a blockbuster move involving the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees. Sources close to the situation suggest that one of the Dodgers' brightest stars could be on the verge of making a stunning arrival in pinstripes, sending waves of excitement through the Yankees faithful. While no official confirmation has surfaced, the mere possibility has already ignited conversations across the baseball world. Insiders hint that negotiations, though discreet, have been gaining momentum behind closed doors. The Yankees, always synonymous with bold moves and superstar power, appear eager to reinforce their roster with a player capable of redefining their season and elevating expectations to another level. Fans in the Bronx are reportedly in celebration mode, fueled not by certainty, but by the allure of what this acquisition could represent. The idea of a Dodgers standout stepping onto the field at Yankee Stadium carries a sense of drama that fits perfectly within the franchise's storied history. It's the kind of narrative that thrives in New York. High stakes, big names, and even bigger ambitions. On the other side, questions linger about what such a departure would mean for Los Angeles. Letting go of a marquee talent is never a simple decision, and if the rumors hold any truth, it could signal a strategic shift within the Dodgers organization. Whether it's about long-term planning or a calculated gamble, the implications would be significant. For now, everything remains in the realm of speculation. Yet in a sport where surprises often define eras, this potential move already feels like one of those moments that could reshape the landscape. Until clarity emerges, the Bronx will keep dreaming, and the baseball world will keep watching. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.